The stranger in the family home. There is a strange cruelty in the world. We are born in the place where we should belong, but we carry within us the silent certainty that we are strangers in our own home. Why have you always felt different from those who shared the same roof, the same blood, the same childhood memories? Why, amidst the family laughter around the table, something inside you remained silent, observing everything as if watching a play in which it was not a part? This journey that we will begin together does not promise easy answers or cheap consolations. It invites you to dive into the murky waters of the unconscious, guided by the wisdom of Carl Jung, the Swiss explorer who mapped the darkest territories of the human soul. Jung understood that our psyche is not a smooth surface, but a deep ocean, where ancestral creatures, collective memories, and truths that our conscious mind prefers to ignore live. He taught us that suffering is not an accident along the way, but often the first call to a journey of self-knowledge that can transform our entire existence. The feeling of not belonging in a family is not a personal flaw or a whim of fate. It is often the first sign that something greater is trying to be born through you. When a child grows up feeling like an outsider among his own people, this may indicate that he carries within himself seeds that did not find fertile soil in that particular environment, not because the family is bad or defective, but because certain souls bring with them an existential project that transcends the limitations of the nucleus in which they were born. Jung discovered that we all wear social masks that he called personas. These masks are not deliberate lies, but necessary adaptations to navigate the world. Within the family, from a very early age, we learn what persona is expected of us. The obedient son, the responsible daughter, the clown who relieves tension, the intellectual who carries academic expectations. But what if the mask you were forced to wear never quite fit your face? What if, beneath it, there was someone completely different from what your family expected to find? The feeling of family estrangement often arises from this mismatch between who you really are and who you have had to pretend to be in order to maintain harmony. Over the years, you may have developed an almost supernatural ability to read other people's expectations and adapt to them, becoming an emotional chameleon. But chameleons, no matter how skilled they are, never completely forget their original color. There is something even deeper at work in this dynamic. Jung realized that each family functions as a complex psychic system where members unconsciously assume archetypal roles in order to maintain a precarious balance. Some carry the collective shadow of the group, others become the bearers of light. Some assume the role of victim, others of savior. When you feel like an outsider in your family, it may be because you have unconsciously refused to accept the role that was assigned to you in this psychic theater. This refusal is neither conscious nor deliberate. It's something that happens in the deepest layers of our personality, where our true self whispers its objections, even when our conscious mind doesn't yet understand what's happening. It's as if a part of you has always known that you were born for something different than what that environment could offer. But herein lies a cruel paradox. At the same time that you feel like an outsider in your family, you can also carry a deep sense of guilt about that feeling. After all, these people gave you life, took care of you, did the best they could within their own limitations. How can you be so ungrateful as to feel out of place? How can you secretly wish you belonged somewhere else, had been born in other circumstances? Were someone else's child? This guilt is one of the most subtle prisons we build for ourselves. Jung would teach us that it arises from the confusion between family loyalty and personal authenticity. You can love your family deeply and yet recognize that you don't fully belong there. You can be grateful for everything you've been given and yet admit that you needed something different to fully flourish. There is no betrayal in this honesty, only the courage to acknowledge the complexity of the human experience. What makes this situation even more painful is that you may have often tried desperately to fit in. Perhaps you have molded your personality, your interests, your dreams, trying to be the son or daughter your family expected. Perhaps you have stifled parts of yourself that seemed incompatible with the family environment. But the soul has a wisdom of its own, and it rarely accepts such compromises. For long, Jung found that within each of us, within us, there is something he called the self, a psychic totality that seeks to express itself throughout life. The self is like a seed that carries the complete blueprint of the tree it can become. When the family environment does not provide the right conditions for this seed to germinate naturally, it can remain dormant for years, but it never completely dies. And its silent presence is felt as a constant discomfort, a sense that something essential is missing. The feeling of being an outsider in the family can be, paradoxically, the first sign that you are beginning to hear the whispers of your deeper self. It is as if a part of you refuses to accept the reduced version of who you could be. This unconscious resistance can manifest itself in many ways. An inexplicable sadness during family gatherings, a feeling of being in a role, an emotional hunger that never seems to be satisfied, no matter how much love you receive. Jung taught us that the process of becoming who we really are, which he called individuation, often requires us to separate ourselves psychologically from those who shaped us. This doesn't mean rejecting or abandoning our family, but rather developing an identity of our own that doesn't depend entirely on the approval or understanding of others. It's a delicate and often painful process because it involves disappointing the people we love, coming out as someone they may not fully recognize or accept. But there's something liberating about this journey of self-discovery. When you finally stop trying to fit into molds that were never meant for you, something extraordinary happens. You begin to find your own tribe. Not necessarily people related to you by blood, but souls who recognize something familiar in you, who instinctively understand your emotional language, who see beauty in the parts of you that your family has always considered strange or problematic. Jung believed that there are deep connections between people that transcend the superficial circumstances of birth and upbringing. He called this the collective unconscious, a layer of the psyche where we all share ancestral symbols, myths, and patterns. When you feel like an outsider in your biological family, it may be because your soul resonates at different frequencies, connects with other archetypes, and seeks to express aspects of the human experience that do not find an echo in your original environment. This does not mean that you are superior or special, but rather that you carry within you a unique combination of possibilities that require specific conditions to manifest. It is like a plant that needs a particular type of soil to grow. There is nothing wrong with other types of soil, but only a specific environment will allow it to reach its full potential. The process of recognizing and accepting this fundamental difference is both liberating and frightening. Liberating because you can finally stop blaming yourself for not fitting in. Scary because accepting your uniqueness also means taking responsibility for creating your own life, regardless of family expectations. It means becoming the author, curve your own story, rather than simply playing a role in someone else's drama. Jung realized that many of our deepest neuroses and sufferings arise from trying to live lives that are not genuinely ours. When we spend years trying to be who others expect us to be, something inside us becomes sick. Depression, anxiety, and a sense of existential emptiness can be symptoms of a soul that is being forced to live in contradiction to its deepest nature. But what do we do with this discovery? How do we live authentically without destroying the family bonds that, despite their complexity, still have value in our lives? Jung would suggest that the answer lies in integration, not in total rupture. It is about finding a way to honor both your individual truth and your family bonds, creating a delicate balance between loyalty and authenticity. This may mean establishing healthy boundaries, creating spaces in your life where you can be completely yourself, even if it means disappointing certain family expectations. It may mean developing compassion for both yourself and your family, recognizing that you are all doing the best you can within your limitations. It may mean accepting that family love does not always come in the form we need, but that it still has value. Jung believed that the most difficult relationships often hold the greatest potential for growth. Your family, even though it can be a source of pain and misunderstanding, can also be a mirror that reflects aspects of yourself that you need to integrate or transform. Perhaps your feeling of not belonging has served to develop your empathy, your ability to understand other outsiders, your ability to create deep connections with people who also feel out of place in the world. The feeling of being an outsider in your own family may have been the catalyst that forced you to develop a more solid and authentic self-identity. People who grow up feeling perfectly integrated into their family environment may never feel the need to deeply question who they are or what they want from life. But you, who always knew there was something different about you, were forced to embark on the journey of self-discovery earlier and more intensely. There is a strange beauty in this pain. It may have been the price you paid for keeping your authenticity intact, for refusing to be completely molded by external expectations. Your sense of not belonging may have been, paradoxically, what saved your individuality from being completely absorbed by the family system. Jung would remind us that myths and fairy tales are full of heroes who had to leave their families to discover their true destinies. The son who does not inherit the kingdom, the daughter who refuses an arranged marriage, the young man who sets out in search of something he cannot even name. These stories exist because they reflect a profound psychological truth. Sometimes, in order to become who we truly are, we must separate ourselves from those who brought us into the world. This does not mean that the separation has to be geographic or permanent. It can be a psychological separation, an internal process of differentiation that allows you to maintain family ties without losing your individual identity. It is possible to love your family and still live your own life. It is possible to honor your origins without being a prisoner of them. The ultimate paradox of this journey is that often it is only when you stop trying desperately to belong to your family that you can begin to relate to them in a more genuine and compassionate way. When you stop needing their approval to feel valid, you can finally see them as complex human beings with their own wounds, fears, and limitations. Jung believed that the ultimate goal of individuation is not isolation, but a more mature and conscious way of relating to others. When you know yourself deeply, you can connect with others from a place of authenticity rather than neediness or need for validation. Your family relationships can then transform, becoming less fraught with unmet expectations and more grounded in mutual acceptance of human complexity. The truth is that you have always been exactly who you were meant to be. The problem has never been your oddity, but the attempt to force a unique soul into a standardized mold. Your difference is not a flaw to be corrected, but a uniqueness to be celebrated and cultivated. The world needs your unique perspective, your particular way of feeling and interpreting the human experience. Acknowledging that you have always felt like an outsider in your family is not a diagnosis of failure, but a revelation of authenticity. It means that despite all the pressures to conform, something essential in you has remained intact, waiting for the right moment to blossom. Your sense of not belonging may have been the silent guardian of your individuality, protecting it until you were mature enough to embrace it fully. The journey of self-discovery that this realization begins has no definite final destination. It is an ongoing process of becoming more and more of who you really are, of integrating rejected aspects of your personality, of finding ever more authentic ways of expressing yourself in the world. It is a delicate dance between accepting your roots and growing beyond them, between honoring where you came from and embracing where you are going. Jung left us with a message of hope. Our individuality is not a cosmic accident, but a unique expression of the human whole trying to know itself through us. When you embrace your familiar strangeness, you are participating in something much greater than your personal circumstances. You are contributing to the infinite diversity of human experience, adding your own unique voice to the complex symphony of existence. The feeling of being an outsider in your own home may have been painful, but it may also have been the first whisper of your true soul, calling you to a journey of authenticity that few have the courage to undertake. In this familiar strangeness lies not a condemnation but a promise that you came into this world to be exactly who you are, not who others expected you to be.